Now we have discussed about the Jainism. So that was one religious belief which was prevailing at that time in India. Simultaneously, there were many other religious thoughts were also prevailing in India, and one among them was the Buddhism. So now we will discuss about the Buddhism. It was initiated by the Lord Buddha. You can see from the image, many of you are aware about him. So here Buddha is sitting in meditation. So we will discuss about the Gautam Buddha. He was born in 563 BCE and he remained till 483 BCE. His birth took place in Lumbini near Kapilvastu, which is presently in Nepal. His father's name was the Suddhodhan and he was also the chief of a clan, Sakya family, and he was the ruler of Kapilvastu. He was the chief of Kapilvastu. Mother, Mahamaya, and she was the princess of Kosala kingdom. She was the mother of Mahatma Buddha. She died within 1 week of his birth and cared by his foster mother, and her name was the Gautami. Means right after his birth his mother died and name of his mother was Mahamaya. So later on he was brought up by his foster mother and her name was the Mahaprajapati Gautami. At the age of 16 he was also married to the Yasodhara and she gave birth to a son, that is the Rahulan or Rahul. So he was married at an early age of 16 years and after some time a son was born in his family and name of the son of Mahatma Buddha was the Rahul. So after the birth of Rahul, Mahatma Buddha left the domestic life and he wanted to know the truth. In the search of discovery of the truth, he left home and he wandered like a mendicant. And after many years of penance, ultimately he got enlightenment in Bodh Gaya and thereafter he preached. So what were his teachings? So here we will discuss about the teachings of the Lord Buddha. According to the Buddhist philosophy, the world is transient, anicca, and constantly changing. It is also soulless, that is the anatta, and there is nothing permanent or eternal in it. This is the main teaching of Buddha. कि परिवर्तन ही संसार का नियम है. The world is transient and it is ever changing. Nothing is permanent in this world. Within this transient world, sorrow is intrinsic to human existence. संसार दुखों का घर है. That was another philosophy of Buddhism. That sorrow is intrinsic to human existence. Everybody in this world is facing a lot of sorrow. By following the path of moderation between severe penance and self-indulgence, that human being can come out of these worldly troubles. So he was a believer of the middle path. He said that by following the middle path, and the middle path should be a moderate path between the severe penance and becoming too materialistic. यानी कि हमें ज़्यादा materialistic भौतिक सुखों में भी नहीं खोना चाहिए, हमें ज़्यादा गहरी तपस्या की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है. हम एक मॉडरेट और मिडिल पाथ फॉलो करके हम साल्वेशन को अचीव कर सकते हैं. एंड वी कैन गेट रीड ऑफ दिस वर्ल्डली सोरो. तो दैट वाज द टीचिंग ऑफ महात्मा बुद्ध. द बुद्धा रिगार्डेड द सोशल वर्ल्ड एज द क्रिएशन ऑफ ह्यूमन्स रादर देन ऑफ द डिवाइन ओरिजिन. सो इट इज़ रिटन इन द सनातन धर्म और हिंदू धर्म दैट इन ब्राह्मणिकल फिलोसफी दैट द वर्ल्ड इज क्रिएटेड बाय ब्रह्मा. And he divided the entire society of human being into 4 varnas, that is Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. But Buddhist philosophy was different. Buddha believed that the world is not created by the God. Rather, the society and the world is the creation of the human being. So it can be altered whenever or wherever he wished to alter it. Therefore, he advised kings and Gahapatis to be humane and ethical towards the common people. He also appealed to the kings and the Gahapati. Gahapati means the chief of the houses, that they should be ethical and they should give the humane treatment to every living being in this world. Individual effort was expected to transform the social relation. The Buddha emphasized individual agency and righteous action as the means to escape from the cycle of rebirth and attain self-realization. He believed that individual effort was needed to transform the social relation and right action should be there, and by doing the right things, right action, we can get rid of the cycle of the birth and rebirth, and we can attain the self-realization, we can attain the enlightenment. So this was the philosophy of Mahatma Buddha. He believed that by following the Eightfold Path, he gave the 8 principles, and these 8 principles are the right speech, right karma, right thinking. So right, there used to be the 8 principles, that was known as the Eightfold Path. So he believed that by following the Eightfold Path and by following the middle path, one can get rid of the cycle of the birth and rebirth, and he can attain the salvation. So that was the philosophy of Mahatma Buddha. We can see that a number of things are similar in Jainism and Buddhism. Some things is a little bit different in Jainism than the Buddhism. Now children, we will discuss about the stupa. So what was the stupa, what kind of structure it had, and why stupas were built, how the stupas used to be built, and from which religion the stupas used to belong. So first of all, you can see that this is written as the Chaityas. The word Chaitya has come from the Chita, means the funeral pyre. It means certain places were regarded as sacred by the people in the early times. Sites with special trees or unique rocks, or sites of the awe-inspiring natural beauty with small shrine attached to them, were known as the Chaityas. Means there were some places which were related to a particular religion. They were considered to be very auspicious, and people used to visit that particular place. It may be a rock, it may be a stoop, it may be a tree. So these were known as the Chaityas. So there were many Chaityas in Buddhism, like Bodh Gaya. There is the Bodhi tree, so that is also a Chaitya. The stupas which used to be there in India, they were also known as the Chaityas. You can see that there are many sites which were considered to be the Buddhist sites, and these all were the Chaityas, and they were throughout the Indian subcontinent. You can see that this is Lumbini, where Buddha was born. That is one of the most important pilgrim place of Buddhism. Kushinagar, or it is also known as the Kushinara in UP, where Buddha died. Barbara, this is a cave which was built by Ashoka, and that was related to the Ajivika sect. And very close to it there is Bodh Gaya, where Buddha got the enlightenment. Baharut, that is a stupa. Sarnath, where Buddha gave his first sermon. Sravasti is also an important place. Sanchi, which is an important stupa. Ajanta, where many caves are there which are related to the Buddhism. Nasik and Amravati. It was also one of the magnificent stupa, but with the passage of time it got ruined. Nagarjun Konda. So these are the important Buddhist sites which are generally being asked in the questions, especially in the map questions. These sites are being asked. So these are the important Buddhist sites which are also given in your book, and these all are known as the Chaityas. Now come to the stupa. So here we will discuss about the meaning of stupa and why stupas used to be important, what was the importance of stupa, how these used to be built. First of all, stupa, meaning mound, where relics of the Buddha, such as his bodily remains or object used by him, were buried, were known as the stupa. Stupa used to be a kind of a semicircular shape, and in this there used to be the things which were related to the Buddha were kept. It may be the bodily hair, nails, anything which was used by Buddha during his lifetime, they used to be buried in these stupas. It is known that Ashoka distributed. So there is a book which is related to the Ashoka, and its name is Asok Vandana. In Asok Vandana, he wrote that after the death of Buddhas, after 200 years after the death of Buddha, Ashoka distributed portion of Buddha's relics to every important town and ordered the construction of stupa over them. As a result, many stupas were built during the lifetime of Ashoka and after. The stupas at Behrut, Sanchi, Sarnath were built by the 2nd century BC during the lifetime of Ashoka. Inscriptions found on the railings and in pillars of the stupa give idea about the donation given by the kings, guilds, bhikshus, bhikshunis, and ordinary men and women for building and decorating these monuments. So mainly stupa building was started by Ashoka, but there used to be many people who used to contribute in building these stupas, and these may be the bhikshus and bhikshunis, it may be the ordinary men and women. They also used to donate the money. Some used to work there without any wages, so that was also a great contribution. So with the help of everybody, the stupas used to be built. So that was a contribution made by everybody who used to be the follower of Buddhism. So you can see that this is the image of Sanchi Stupa. Now what are the important part of a stupa that we will discuss here? So it's a magnificent stupa which is till date still available, and it is in Madhya Pradesh. So Sanchi is a small place near Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh, and it's very close to the railway line which joins Bhopal and Delhi. So you can visit there, and it is situated on a low hill. So that is the Sanchi Stupa. So here we will discuss about the structure of this Sanchi Stupa. So you can see that this is the Chhatri. The top, these 3 layers, this is known as the Chhatri. This is Harmika, and this is considered to be the abode of God. Abode of God means ये भगवान का घर है. So ordinary man is not allowed to go here. So this is considered to be the abode of God on the top, and there is Chhatri. Then you can see that this semicircular mound, this entire part is called as the Anda because its shape is like of that. And this is the Toran. Toran means the main gateway, that is known as the Toran. You can see that there are many carvings on this Toran. And this is the railing. This is known as the Medhi. And this is the outer railing. And it resembles with the bamboo because earlier the Sanchi Stupa's railing was made up of the bamboo. But that was decomposed with the passage of time, that was degraded. As a result, later rulers replaced that bamboo railing with this railing. And it is made up of the stone, but the stones were cut in the same manner as the bamboo used to be there. So the appearance is almost the same. So this is the outer railing. From here the entry was made in the stupa, and they used to have a round around the stupa, and that is the railing from where the prikrama of the stupa is also made. This is another layout plan of the stupa. You can see that this is the Chhatri. It is also known as the Yasti, Harmika. This is the Anda, and here the people used to walk like this, and so this is the Anda, and this is the railing from where the prikrama used to be made. So this is another layout plan of the Sanchi Stupa. So stupas used to be having almost the same kind of shape. All the stupas used to be built in this shape, and this is the Torndwar where a lot of carving was made. Now there was another stupa apart from the Sanchi, and its name was the Amravati Stupa. So Sanchi was having a different faith as compared to the Amravati Stupa. Sanchi could survive for a long period of time, but Amravati could not. So what were the reasons that we will discuss here? So discovering stupas, the fate of Amravati and the Sanchi. The following factors were responsible for the present fate of the Amravati. So Amravati was an important stupa, and present day this place lies in Andhra Pradesh, and it is one of the proposed capital of Andhra Pradesh. So there used to be a magnificent stupa, and it is believed that this stupa used to be more magnificent as compared to the Sanchi. But that could not survive. So there were many reasons why it could not survive and why Sanchi Stupa is in a good condition. So many factors were there why Sanchi could be preserved but Amravati could not be. In 1796, local Raja stumbled upon the ruins of the stupa at Amravati using its stone to build a temple. So initially this Amravati stupa was destroyed by the local Raja because he wanted to use the stone and the bricks of the Amravati Stupa for building a temple. As a result, it was firstly destroyed by a local Raja. Thereafter, in 1854, Walter Elliot, who was the commissioner of Guntur, because Amravati used to be a part of Guntur district, that was in Andhra Pradesh, he visited Amravati and collected several sculpture panels and took them away to Madras. So whatever he found that the things are of his use and which seemed to him to be attractive, that those things were taken by him and these were taken to the Madras by Walter Elliot. Then Colonel Colin Mackenzie also visited the site, but his reports were not published. So Colin Mackenzie was also a surveyor in India, and he was interested in old ancient monuments because he is also given the credit to discover the Hampi and Vijayanagara, and he played an important role in preserving those sites. So he wanted to preserve this site also. So whatever report which he published, that could not be published in time, and by that time Amravati got destroyed. This is the mound which was left and it was not completely destroyed. You can see that this is the mound of Amravati. It was a huge mound. This is the model of Amravati. Earlier the stupa used to be like this. You can see that the same way there are railings around the Amravati stupa as it is there around the Sanchi stupa. And you can see that on the Anda also there are many carvings which is not visible in Sanchi. So it was in a better stupa and it was more magnificent stupa as compared to the Sanchi stupa. You can see that this is the abode of God, that is called as the Harmika. This is Yasti or Chhatri. This is the railing which is used for Prikrama around the stupa. So this is the model or plaster cast copy of Amravati Stupa. Earlier Amravati Stupa used to look like this, and this one is the present picture of Amravati Stupa. So we can see that how it was ruined and it could not survive. Now then another important person who came into the scene, and his name was H.H. Cole. So who was he? He wrote that it seems to me a suicidal and indefensible policy to allow the country to be looted of original work of ancient art. So S.H. Cole wrote that whatever ancient art is available in India, that was freely looted by the Britishers. And he warned the Indians and the government also that it is a suicidal policy that we are allowing the other people to loot the ancient cultural or the religious heritage. His plea for in situ preservation. In situ preservation means जो चीज़ जहाँ पर है वो वहीं पर रहनी चाहिए. Because many parts of the Amravati Stupa were taken away by the Britishers, but he believed that whatever is found at which place, that should be kept there only, and only we should take along with us the plaster cast copy of that particular item, not the original one. But his plea could not be heard as in case of Amravati, but later on whatever request he made, that was accepted in case of the Sanchi Stupa. So whatever he suggested, that was applicable only in Sanchi Stupa and it could not be applied in case of Amravati. As a result, Amravati was destroyed and Sanchi later on was preserved. But there were many other people who also played an important role in preserving the Sanchi Stupa, and mainly the name comes of the Begum of Bhopal, Sultan Jahan and Shah Jahan Begum, and they, along with the help of the archaeologist, that is the John Marshall, they were able to preserve the Sanchi Stupa. Now we will read about the Begum of Bhopal that we discussed, Sultan Jahan and the Shah Jahan Begum. So what role was played by them? So the role of the Begums of Bhopal in preserving the stupa at Sanchi. In the 19th century, European first, the French and later the English were interested to take away the eastern gateway of the stupa to Paris or London Museum. Because at that time it was a colonial period, and that time there were two colonial powers. One was the French and another was the British. Later on French got a defeat at the hand of the British. As a result they left India. But firstly they came and they wanted to take away the eastern gateway, which used to be very beautiful, to along with them to the Paris. Later on, the English also wanted to do the same, but Shahjahan Begum, who was the Begum of Bhopal at that time, took a wise decision to make plaster cast copies to please the Europeans, as it was advised by the Church Call. So she gave only the plaster cast copies of these gateways, not the original one, and original one could be kept at the place where it used to be. This resulted in the original remains at the state. The rulers of Bhopal, Shahjahan Begum and her successor Sultan Jahan Begum, provided money for the preservation of the ancient site of Sanchi Stupa. So we can see that it was because of the contribution of Sultan Jahan and her predecessor, that is the Shahjahan. They played an important role in preserving the Sanchi Stupa. Museum was built, publication of volume by John Marshall. John Marshall also visited there, and he was also funded by these two Begums so that he can write about the Sanchi Stupa. As a result, it comes to the limelight and it could be preserved. So that was the work which was done by the Sultan Jahan and Shahjahan Begum. Today it stands testimony to the successful restoration of the key archaeological site by Archaeological Survey of India. Now it is under the control of ASI, Archaeological Survey of India, and it was well preserved. So if the Begums of Bhopal did not take a wise decision, it would also have been destroyed as the Amravati Stupa was destroyed. Now, sculptures at Sanchi. So we are discussing here about the Sanchi Stupa. So what sort of sculptures were found at Sanchi, that we will discuss here. Now, stories in stone. So these kind of sculptures are found in the Sanchi Stupa, but these are not only the images which have been carved on the stone surface, rather they tell us about the story. So these are generally story which used to be carved on the stone, like we see many sceneries in the temple also. But every scene or every picture in the temple which is there, that tell us about some mythological story. The same way, these also tell us a story. So mainly here you can see that it is a jungle scene. There are huts, many people. So some are the people who are having bow and arrow. So mainly it is read by the historians, and when they compared it with the textual records, and they came to know that this is a story of Vasantara Jataka. Vasantara Jataka. Now what were the Jatakas? Jataka tales were the tales which were related to the pre-birth of the Buddha. मीन्स बुद्ध के पूर्व जन्म की कहानियाँ जातक टेल्स कहलाती हैं. तो ये भी वसंतरा जातक की एक कहानी है जो कि बुद्ध के पूर्व जन्म की कहानी है. ऐसा माना जाता है कि पहले बुद्ध जो एक प्रिंस के रूप में पैदा हुए थे पूर्व जन्म के अंदर, एंड ही लेफ्ट होम एंड ही बिकेम ए मेडिकेंट एंड ही वेंट टू द फॉरेस्ट फॉर मेडिटेशन. तो ये उसी से रिलेटेड कहानी है. सो वी हैव सीन दैट दिस इज अ स्टोरी from a Jatak tale, and it is from the Vasantara Jataka. Similar stories are also carved in the stone surface, on the stone surface in such stupas. So we will discuss something more, that what sort of sculpture is found in the Amravati or Sanchi Stupa. Mainly here it is Sanchi Stupa, and what sort of stories are associated with those sculptures. Here you can see that there are many symbols which have also been used in these stupas. So these are also found on the gateways of Sanchi Stupa. You can see this is first one. This is the thing which you may be aware. This is Ashok Chakra, that is also found in Sarnath. So it is also found in Sanchi. You can see that chakra is not only the symbolization of the chakra, it is also a pillar. So it is a replication of the Sarnath. It means this tells us about the first sermon of Buddha. So this is only not only the sculpture, rather it is a symbol of the first sermon of Buddha. यानी कि बुद्धा ने एनलाइटनमेंट के बाद जो पहला सरमन उपदेश दिया था, ये उससे संबंधित एक सिंबल है. तो जहाँ चक्र है वहाँ पे फर्स्ट सरमन हम उसको मान लेते हैं. दिस इज ऑल्सो नोन एज धर्म चक्र परिवर्तन, धम्म चक्र पवतन. दिस इज स्तूपा. तो दिस स्तूपा इज नॉट ओनली द इमेज ऑफ द स्तूपा, Rather, this tells us about the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha. Mahaparinirvana means when Buddha died. So these symbols are also found on these stones of the stupas. This is a tree and people are worshipping here, but there is an empty seat under the tree. So this tells us about the meditation of Buddha, that Buddha is in meditation and that's why the seat is empty and he is not visible, and he is under the peepal tree where Buddha got the enlightenment. So this tells us about the story of enlightenment and meditation of Buddha. So these are the symbols which are also used in these stupas. Why these sculptures were made? So that everybody is not literate. So those people who were not able to read, they could easily understand the life story of the Buddha by seeing these sculptures which were carved generally on the stupas. You can see that symbol of worship have also been shown here. This is an elephant which is a symbol of strength and wisdom. This is Gaj Lakshmi. This is a story which is not related to the Buddha. This is Gaj Lakshmi. Gaj Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune. She is the goddess of fortune. So why it is carved on the Sanchi Stupa? Because it is not related to the Buddhism. It is related to the Hinduism, because Lakshmi is worshipped in Hinduism. So this is Gaj Lakshmi, where a lady is standing, where a goddess is standing on a lotus flower and the water is poured by the elephant. So this is Gaj Lakshmi, and this is the goddess of good fortune. It means not only the stories related to the Buddha were carved on the stupas, rather the popular tradition which was followed in that particular area, the imagery related to that popular tradition were also carved on the stupas, on the stone of these stupas. You can see that this is another image. Here you can see that a lady is swinging, and this is the same lady which is swinging, and this is believed that, some believe that this is the Maya which is related to the Buddhism, but some believe that this is a goddess and she is the goddess of the flowers and the fruits. By her blessing, the flowers and fruits appear on the trees. So this is that goddess. So this is also a part of popular tradition, and her name is Salabjinka. She was the goddess of flowers and fruits, and because of her blessings, the trees gives us fruits and the flowers. So these images are also found on the surface, on the stone surface of these stupas. Now, the development of Mahayana in Buddhism. So what was the Mahayana? So you can see that this is the image of Buddha, and that image is in another style, and this is known as the Gandhara style. Which style? Gandhara style. Gandhara style was the style, it is also known as the Indo-Greek style. Means Indian arts and the Greek arts were mixed together to produce this kind of style, and this is called as the Gandhara style. Mainly this style was made in the northwestern part of India and Afghanistan. So these kind of images are found in the northwestern part of India only. So that is also related to the Buddhism, but initially Buddha's image worship was not there. So how it came to be worshipped in the form of image, that we will read here. So Mahayana, if we bifurcate this word, Mahayan, Maha plus Yan. Maha means great or big. Yan means vehicle, means great vehicle. Yan जो vehicle होते हैं जिस पे चढ़ के जाते हैं, that is Mahayan, great vehicle. So by the 1st century CE, there were changes in Buddhist ideas and practices. Early Buddhist teachings had been given importance to self-effort in achieving Nibbana. Earlier, Buddha was emphasizing that we should do the penance to get Nirvana. But later on, Buddha was regarded as a human being. The idea of Buddha as savior emerged. So later on, it was believed that Buddha can also provide Nirvana to other people. So he was worshipped as the savior. It was believed that he is the one who could ensure salvation. Means वो दूसरों को भी मुक्ति प्राप्त करवा सकता है. Simultaneously, the concept of the Buddhista also developed. Buddhistas were perceived as deeply compassionate beings that could help others to attain Nirvana. तो लेटर ऑन ए कॉन्सेप्ट डेवलप दैट वाज ऑफ द बुद्धिस्ता। बुद्धिस्ता क्या था कि जो बुद्ध के फॉलोवर हैं वो ऐसे लोग हैं जो दूसरों को हेल्प करेंगे, दूसरों को निर्वाण प्राप्त करने में भी हेल्प वो लोग करेंगे। द वर्शिप ऑफ द इमेजेस ऑफ द बुद्धा एंड बुद्धिस्ता बिकेम एन इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ दिस ट्रेडिशन। जैसे कि हिंदुओं में मूर्ति पूजा की जाती थी, बुद्धिज्म में पहले मूर्ति पूजा नहीं थी, लेकिन फर्स्ट सेंचुरी CE के आसपास जब कुषाण रूलर्स थे इंडिया में तो बुद्ध की मूर्ति पूजा होनी शुरू हो गई और ऐसा माना जाने लगा कि बुद्ध के जो फॉलोवर हैं या जो बुद्ध हैं वो दूसरों को भी मोक्ष की प्राप्ति करवा सकते हैं। सो ही वॉज वर्शिप्ड एज द सेवियर। देन दिस न्यू वे ऑफ थिंकिंग वॉज कॉल्ड महायान। तो ये जो नई तरह की थिंकिंग थी ये महायान थिंकिंग थी, अंडरस्टैंड। एंड दिस थिंकिंग वॉज स्टार्टेड एट द टाइम ऑफ कनिष्क हु यूज्ड टू बी द कुषाणा रूलर, बिकॉज कनिष्क ऑर्गेनाइज्ड द 4th काउंसिल ऑफ बुद्धिज्म and it was held in Kundalban in Kashmir, and from there this concept came, the concept of Mahayana. Later on Kanishka also invaded China. He conquered part of China. As a result, this ideology of Mahayana also went to the China. As a result, China is till date a follower of Mahayana branch of Buddhism. But in Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka, the Buddhism was spread there by Ashoka, and by that time Mahayana branch of Buddhism was not there. As a result, Sri Lanka is following Hinian branch. So southern countries who are Buddhist countries, they are following Hinian, but the northern countries from where Buddhism was spread through China, like Japan, Korea, they are following the Mahayana branch of Buddhism. The follower of Mahayana Buddhism described the older tradition as the Hinian. So the old tradition where image worship of Buddha was not there, that was called as the Hinian. Hinian means lesser vehicle, lesser vehicle. इसको कुछ इस तरह से समझो कि जैसे एक नदी है, नदी में अगर हम छोटी बोट लेके जाएंगे तो हम अकेले उसको पार कर सकते हैं। सो दैट वाज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ हीनियान। वो कौन सा कॉन्सेप्ट हो गया? हीनियान। लेकिन अगर हम एक बड़ी बोट लेके जा रहे हैं, उसमें 4 आदमी हम और भी बिठा करके नदी को पार करवा देते हैं, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज दी महायान। मतलब ये है कि संसार एक नदी की तरह है, एक सागर की तरह है, और आदमी को उसको पार करना है, भवसागर को पार करना है। अगर हम अकेले पार करते हैं तो वो था ओल्ड कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ बुद्धिज्म, दैट इज हीनियान। मतलब अपना अपना भला हम करते हैं, लेकिन बाद में देखा कि हम अपना नहीं दूसरों का भी भला कर सकते हैं, तो हमने एक बड़ी बोट ली और उस समुद्र में से बहुत सारे लोगों को अपने साथ पार करवा लिया, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड महायान कॉन्सेप्ट। इट मीन्स do good to self as well as do to others. That was called as the Mahayan branch of Buddhism. So that change took place in first century CE.